Hey kiddos, well we're back again today and we're going to be joining some other ladies over on a challenge that is called Twine It Up. The two ladies that are hosting the challenge are Fanny with Creations by Favi and Maria with Crafting with Maria. This is going to be a monthly challenge I'm going to participate in. All right, we're going to get started here with this first project. You're going to need two heart shapes. The first one, that top one, doesn't matter what heart shape it is. The second one, probably not. You could probably recreate it with just a regular heart sign and an extra piece of cardboard. But if you have this sign, it'll make it easier on you. So this one, I'm going to pry this piece off because it was two pieces. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to elevate it more. I want to bring it up there so that I can make it more dimensional. So this sign actually has a farmhouse, what am I trying to say? That, well, fiddle. Shiplap. Ha! Thought of it. Okay, so it's got a shiplap look to it. And I'm going to paint it white with my Waverly chalk paint. Of course, that's my favorite color. Y'all know that already, I'm sure, since I use it in almost every video. But I just like neutral stuff. So I like neutral and then I like a little color to it. So it just matches my decor better and it kind of gives it more of that farmhouse look, I think. It might not. I don't know. Y'all tell me what you think. But I'm just covering both of these hearts up with this white. And then I'm going to take that little burlap sign that I cut off. See, it says Valentine's there and it's pretty, it's in black. So I got to cover it up pretty good. So I hit the letters pretty hard, but then I leave the edges not so painted. And I'm going to let that sit it to the side here in a minute and let it dry. And then it looks like it's attached, but it's not. It's just laid up there. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, since this is the Twine It Challenge, we had to use twine in every project. Didn't matter how much. Could have been rope. Could have been whatever. But anyway, I just love that string art look. And I thought, well, this is kind of cute. Let's do a little bit of this here. And so I've used my first roll of this twine, which of course, I got at the Dollar Tree. And it comes like 3 rolls for $1. And so I'm just wrapping it around there. And I get through the whole thing and I'm like, that's pretty cute. And so I just hot glue the ends on the back. And you like my weight? It's my paint thing. So then I'm like, well, let's add a little bit more. So I take the second roll of it and I start winding it around. And I'm going just in the same direction. So I started going clockwise and I just kept going clockwise because I wanted it to have that spiraled look, that, I can't think what they call that. I guess just that wrapped up look. And I'm just wrapping it around and I just move about a half an inch at a time around the heart. And then see how it's giving that weird pattern. So it starts to slip. So then I'm going to start hot gluing it where it's slipping. Because if you don't, then it just comes unwound. So my suggestion is hot glue it every 2 or 3 turns until you get up there in the curves, and then you're going to have to hot glue it a little bit more. Because up there in the curves, then it starts sliding on you. And so you want to, take one of those little pink things or your spatula and on the back side and hot glue around the top of it. So I think I'm done, and then I'm like, I'm going to do it one more time. You see here. So I pick up the third roll of it, and so it's pretty heavy with the twine. I just really liked the look of it. It turned out cute, and it was just an awesome use, or an awesome reason to use up this twine. I have tons of this twine. I use it on everything. I use it to tie stuff up with. I use it to, if I got a roll of something that I don't want a rubber band around that makes a mark, I'll just tie it up with this. Some old carpet that I had that I was throwing away, I used it to tie it up. So it's just a good idea. And you can use it in your garden too, because, you can tie your tomato plants up to your stakes. So, not too tight though, you'll bruise them. But anyway, so I get these love sticks, I guess I'm going to call them. And I decide I don't want the sticks to them, of course. So I'm pulling them out, but then it leaves a hole. So what I do is I just put some hot glue, and I have this red glitter left over from when I used to do tumblers. And I just dip it in there. And that was it. It covered up the hole, and I didn't have to worry about it. And it's just red, plain red glitter that came from either, I'm sure it came from Walmart, or Michael's, the red at Michael's, I'm sure. So now this little gnome sign is absolutely adorable. This was in the kids section with markers in it, and I thought, I don't care, it's a gnome, I want it. So I'm all about the gnomes this year. So I can't find a whole lot of them, but I do love them. So I just go through here and I paint his hat red, then I paint his heart, and then I paint his feet. And then here in a minute, I'll show you, I'm going to, I can't remember what I did next. I just start painting him. All right, so I'm loving the way he's turning out. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this puff paint. And I know some of you young ones don't know what puff paint is. But in the 90s, we went through and decorated t-shirts with this puff paint. And what you do is you put it on there and it's all goopy. It's a t-shirt paint is what it is. And so I just put it all around his beard. And it's not in any kind of pattern. I kind of swirled it around to make swirly marks so that it would give him kind of a hairy look. And then here in a minute, I'm going to take my heat emboss gun, which is like a high-powered hair dryer, but good Lord, don't put that on your head. It'd burn you to death. So what you do with the puff paint when you put it on shirts is you heat it up with an iron and then it puffs up. So when you put the hot air gun, heat gun, good Lord, it puffs that paint up. And it takes a little bit, even after it puffs up, it's still kind of wet underneath. So you don't need to mess with it for a good 30 minutes to an hour. So now I'm just going to take the black furniture marker and I color in his shoes and then I color in his gloves and just color them in black. And I think he just turned out so cute. On his hat, I'm going to take something that's like glitter glue. It's a dimensional paint. It could be glitter glue. I don't know if you know what stickles are. It's like a glitter glue that's for scrapbooking. And I just go along the lines to kind of give it a little raised look and give it a little more character. Okay, because I just can't leave this poor old gnome alone. I'm going to make him a pom-pom bow for his hat. And I'm just making it with twine. And when you do that, then I just set it to the side because I'm still trying to not mess with him because of that beard being wet. It's actually not wet to the touch, but it's wet underneath. So here I go and I take that white sign that I had with that had the Valentine on it, and I'm just going down the grooves of the what do we call that? I'll go shiplap, and I'm going to add twine to it so that it stands out better. Now you could have just painted it, but since this was a twine it up challenge, I wanted to use as much twine as I could. So I just hot glue it in the lines, and I thought that turned out kind of cute. Now I'm going to wrap it around that Valentine sign, or that Valentine banner is what I should call that. And I just do about 3 things, and I do it in an X pattern. And then I hot glue it down, or hot glue it on there. And then now I'm going to stick these, what they're called is, I call them pop dots, but on here they're like foam tape is what it, and I got it from the Dollar Tree. And I double them up so that it'll stand up off of the board probably about a ½ inch, or probably a ¼ of an inch by the time I stack them up. And I just double them up and hot glue them together, and then I hot glue them on the back of the sign. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that red ribbon that I cut across there. It's just some, I'm going to say it wrong, gross grain ribbon. And I hot glue it on there. And then I put some beige lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree on the bottom of it to just add a little bit more zhuzh, as Chrissy would say. And then I hot glue my letters down. Now I placed them first where I know where I wanted them. The secret to getting the letters pretty even is place them where you want them first, and then start from the inside and work your way out. That way you don't start from the left and go to the right and move it. Now I'm just getting some placement here for these beads that I'm going to use. These square beads, I got them from Walmart in a bucket, or a plastic container that had about 4 or 5 different kinds of beads in it. And these square ones, because I couldn't find the cubes at the time, I have found them since, but I couldn't find them at my Dollar Tree. So I thought, well, these beads will work just as well. So I hot glue them on there, and then I put the hot glue on the back of them, after they dried, and I center it, well, center-ish it on the twine heart. And I'm just holding it down to make sure it gets good connection. And now I'm going to hot glue my gnome on there. And you can see I added his little pom-pom to the end of his hat. And I just fuss it with it. Now, here he is hanging in my living room. I'm all ready for Valentine's Day. And I think he's adorable. I just loved him so much. Well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take one of these metal Valentine boxes, mailboxes, and I'm going to paint it white. Now, you could have used the cardboard one and covered it in paper, or probably painted it with the chalk paint. But I just cover it completely in white Waverly chalk paint, as always. And I'm just painting the outside and then the inside. Now then, I took some pink roses, which could have been red roses, could have been white roses, whatever you wanted. Could have been yellow. And I paint Waverly chalk paint all over them because they're too bright for me. I want it really pale. So I got this vase at Goodwill for 55 cents because I needed a pedestal. And so for my mailbox, because I didn't want it to sit flat. It could have sat flat. It would have been just fine. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue some of the rope from the Dollar Tree on there. And it's the thicker rope. I do use twine in a minute because I realized after I got it wrapped up on there that it's got a severe, I don't know, edge to it. And I wanted it to more like taper in towards the glass. So then I take, after I wrap it all up, then I take the twine and go around the edge on the bottom and wrap it around several times to kind of fill in the groove in between the glass and the thick rope. Does that make sense? Because, I mean, that's the best I could explain it, is I wanted it to kind of taper in. And when you see the whole project, maybe you'll understand better. All right, so I started out looping it around. I thought, well, that's going to take forever. And I thought, well, what would it look like if I just wrap it around loosely? And I really liked it that way because then the glass kind of showed through. Another idea I had after I finished it was to paint the inside of the glass jar white, and then it would kind of given it a 3D effect with the glass. But hindsight's 20/20. All right, so now once I get it up to the top, I'm going to wind it really tight around the top all the way to that top edge. Now, I don't want to go over the edge of it because, of course, it would slide each way, but I want to stop because I want to be able to get good connection with my mailbox. So now what I'm doing is I pulled that flag off that mailbox and had to pop the little rivet back out because I bent the mailbox. Anyway, so I'm cutting a piece of burlap to fit around it, and that's why I took the flag off, is because I couldn't get the burlap around it without cutting it, and I was like, well, I don't want to cut it. So all I did was cut my burlap to fit just over the top and the bottom, because again, I want good connection to that glass jar later on. And I don't think you would get that with the burlap being on the bottom of it. So I ravel the edges to make it look kind of rustic. And then I'm painting my flag because once I popped it off, it cracked the paint on it. And so I'm painting back over it, painting the red parts that I missed that were underneath where I popped it on. So once I get that painted, then I am going to get some styrofoam, and I'm going to cut me a block of styrofoam. Nope, I guess I'm going to paint me some more flowers. I'm sorry. So I'm painting some more flowers and the leaves. I painted the leaves too because I wanted it to have that shabby chic look, which is what I'm trying to go for. I'm not sure I, really got it that well, but, I paint inside of these roses. I paint the leaves. I paint the plastic part on the roses because these were some cheap roses that I got. They're actually for funeral flowers that I call them funeral flowers, but they're like for outside grave stones. So what you put on your headstone when you make the saddles or just flower arrangements for vases and stuff like that. So they're not the best or the prettiest flowers that you can get. But I got like a bush of 18 of them for $2.50 at Dollar Tree, or not Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby back this last spring. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do something with them. So I do make graveside flowers for my family members. But at this point, I already had like 4 extras made up. And I was like, well, I'm going to use these for this. So I just paint them to whatever color I want them. Now then, I'm taking some white paint. And while I got it out, I added just in spots to the burlap and to the twine and the rope. Just to kind of give it I don't know what I was going for, but since the flowers had it, then I thought it just needed it everywhere else. So I'm really not threatening y'all with my steak knife, but that's how what I use to cut my floral foam. And so anything with a serrated edge, a steak knife, even a butter knife, because it's got a little bit of a serrated edge, does way better than trying to just cut it with an X-Acto knife. It just goes through it so much easier. You just saw back and forth, basically. It's a little saw, like when you're sawing through your steak, especially if you cook it too long. All right, so I hot glued that floral foam in there, and then I hot glued the flag back on the mailbox. And now I'm going to put some flowers in. Now you notice that I'm not hot gluing them in. And whenever I do a floral arrangement, I hardly ever hot glue the flowers in, because I might not like where they are, and so I want to redo it. That's just a lesson learned from hot gluing something in and then having to destroy it to get it back apart. So I'll put them in, and then if they feel kind of loose, later on I'll pull them back out and put the hot glue to them. But for the most part, unless you've got toddlers or curious men and friends, that's what I'm on, or whatever, that pluck stuff out of there, they're going to stay. Unless it's hanging upside down or it's going to be outside in the weather. Like I said, I hardly ever hot glue it. Now the leaves I have to hot glue down because they don't have metal sticks on the edge of them. So I'm just like, I put a few flowers in, then I put some leaves in, then I put a few flowers in, then I put some leaves in. And I'm trying to cover up that lid because it's ugly. I don't like the way it looks. So see, I painted, I put them in there, and then I'm going to hot glue them on the sides. And I just move it around, and I put the leaves in, and I put some flowers in. Again, back and forth, back and forth. Well, it looks like I didn't get enough flowers painted. So in all total, I have about 5 roses in this little mailbox, which is probably too many. I probably should have worked with 3, but I just wanted it to be overflowing. And so I just painted me another one and painted me a couple more leaves, and I glued them in there. So now I'm just going to make me a bow with this twine, and I wound it around that sanding block, just something, about 3.5, 4 inches wide to make it. And I did it several times. I wanted it to be a big fluffy bow, and it's just a scatter bow, whatever they call them, a looped bow. And then I fuss with the strings and pull it, shape the bow out, and then now I'm making the tails. And I think I did 6 12-inch, 6 to 9-inch, I'm going to guess, tails on it. So it was probably 18 inches doubled up, made, several more strands, the 18 inches in half. And then I just cut those little heart bells, or those little, they were bells, little heart bells off those 2 door hangers that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I only used the white, so I still have the reds to use later on. But I used 6 of them on there, and I tied 3 on one side and 3 on the other of that. Now you can see me attaching the box to the glass thing, and I just use hot glue because it's not like it's going to be picked up and wallered around. It's going to be used one time a year, and it's going to go in a box for another 12 months. So I glue my bow on after I get it the way I want it, and then now I'm gluing these little wooden hearts, of course I got at the Dollar Tree, and I flip one backwards. So where the little foam tape was, I ripped it off, and I glue one way, and then I flip it over so that on the other side it matches up on it. Now I still don't like it. It still needs some kind of filler. And my lid is hanging down low, and I don't like that. I want it to raise up. So what I do is I put some hot glue behind it to help it stay up there. that just helped it to, you know, stay halfway open or stay flat. What am I trying to say? Make it stick out instead of flop down. And I just let it cool like that. So it's still bent a little bit down, but I liked it better that way than it hanging all the way flapped open. So I just put some hot glue behind it on the hinges to make it stay steady. Now, I still didn't like the way it looked, so I add some more twine to it. And I made about, I think 3 of these looped twine. I'm going to call them fillers is what it is, but I just make a couple of loops of twine in different sizes. So one's bigger than the other. And then I hot glue the ends, and then I'm going to hot glue them inside the flowers. And I'm just poking them in where I think it needs just a little bit of filler. And I do that. I think I made about 3 of them. But you'll be able to tell that I just kind of sprinkled them through there just to add a little bit more and bring in that burlap look or the twine look to the rest of it. And I think it just turned out adorable. I just love it. If you look over there in the far right corner, you can see my next video that's coming up next week with Eileen over on the Hearts DIY channel. I can't wait to do that with her. All right, well, let's get into our third project here. You're going to need some burlap, some cardboard, some wooden hearts, but you could have made a heart out of cardboard too if you're, you know, better than me. And then some popsicle sticks. You could have used paint stir sticks, would have probably been a better idea, but I didn't want to have to go to the garage and cut. It's cold here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mat, get on my mat with the cardboard. I'm going to use my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to cut out a house shape. Now, depending on how big you want to make this, you know, it depends on how much burlap you have, because that's what it was for me, is how much burlap did I have left, which was just this little piece, and I didn't want to waste it, and I hate throwing it away because it costs money. So I'm going to draw me out a house pattern that is about half the size of my burlap, because that's how much I had to work with. So I'm going to cut it, and it's just going to be like a little extra table decoration. I'm actually thinking I might add this into my kitchen coffee. I have a little coffee bar and a shelf over it, and I usually try to decorate that for the holiday season. I still haven't done it yet, and I keep saying I'm going to do it. I need to put up that little banner that I made. So this little house shape, you know, and it's not perfect, guys, I can tell you. It's just made out of cardboard. I love making stuff out of cardboard because then I don't feel so bad if I have to throw it away or if it don't turn out right. When I cut wood, it better be right, because that costs some doggone money. This was just some extra I got from Amazon. So, you know, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue these together too. And I'm doing that to give it some weight. I put a lot of glue on there, and you should too if you're using cardboard, because you're going to need the weight, because every time the wind blows, the thing's going to fall over if it don't weigh a little bit more. So just put some hot glue to it. I probably used a whole stick on that thing by the time it was over with, so that it would be heavy enough that it would not just keep falling over. So now I've done that, and I'm going to cut me a piece of burlap that fits it pretty close, and I'm just going to start wrapping it up like a present. And I do the sides and hot glue them, and then I'm going to do the top and the bottom, and I fold it in like a present. And the front, I want that flap as last. So I don't know if you know what I mean, but when you do a present and you want the pretty side up, that's what you're doing with this too. You want the pretty side up. So the back side is going to have the edges. Now I tried to, it did not want to, the hot glue didn't want to stick to it because it was so hot. This doggone gun about burns your finger off. So I put a wad of glue on there to hold that burlap down, because it was just not having it. It didn't want to stick to it because it was going in between the edges in the corrugated cardboard, which was kind of funny because I was just like, oh, good grief gravy. Anyway, but that just made it even heavier, so that was good for me. So then I just fold the top along, and I cut a V up there so I wouldn't have so much excess, because when you get to putting them popsicle sticks on in a minute, you're going to have to cut that excess off. So wait to cut it off until the hot glue dries, and then cut any kind of bumps or nubbins off. It'll just give you a smoother look with that burlap, because, you know, burlap frays like crazy, and I didn't want it to fray on this one. So I just kind of tucked it in and hot glued it. And then there you can see how the edges kind of got bumps on them. Here in a minute, I'm going to cut them all off. Right now, I'm just cutting one end on each popsicle stick because I doubled them up. And again, I think that I should have used paint stir stick, paint stir sticks. I could have cut one in half and used it on there, and it would have been just fine. But you know, again, hindsight's 20/20. So I get them the length I want, and then I hot glue them together. And I had to do one of them twice because the glue got cold before I got the other one stuck on there. I think I got a phone call. Knowing me, that's probably what it was, where I was answering a text. Now, I hot glue these on there before I thought, because I wanted to paint them pink so they'd match that flower arrangement, because I want to try to use them together. That mailbox flower arrangement we just did. But I didn't paint them beforehand, so I just hot glued them on there because, you know, I'm not thinking ahead of time. And I get them on, and then, you know, I'm taking my scissors to get my extra glue off, and I use my X-Acto knife to try to pull some of that off. Again, if you take a cold metal object to hot glue, it will stick to the metal every time, and then you can pull it off of your project so it's not stuck on your burlap and ruining it, or your wood or whatever. So remember that one, girls. The next thing I do is I got it all glued on there, and I'm going to make a base. So I cut me a big old piece not a big old piece, but I think it was about 4.5, 5 inches on that bottom part. It might have been bigger than that. It's probably about 6. And then I take twine, because this is the Twine It Up challenge, and I cover that board in twine. Now, I give myself an edge at the first of it, knowing I'm going to trim it off in the end. So I just keep wrapping it around, and I glue. Then I wrap it around and glue about 4 or 5 times, and I put a little glue on it. So that if it does unravel, I only got 4 or 5 loops and not 55 loops of twine coming off. So, you know, you don't have to do every single one, but you don't want it to be, you know, loose on there. So about every inch I did some hot glue. Now when I get to the ends, I'm going to run glue along the edge. I'm going to take them pink things, and I'm going to use those pink things to help me mash that twine into the glue. And so that covers the edge, and that you don't have to worry about it. Now the other edge was, remember I said I let a little extra, so I trim it off, and then I pinch that twine down on it with the hot glue again, and it worked. Now I didn't think this was going to work very well. I thought, how's this going to stick on here, you know? So I think, I wish I had me some of those Jenga blocks, but I can't ever find them. So I got I run another thing of hot glue on there, and I'm using my little glass trivet, like the Crafty Cousins. You know, they use those for their hot glue guns. I thought, well, that'd be good if it gets down on it. It won't be on my mat. So I decided that I'm going to get a dowel rod, because that's as close as I can get what I have, and I stick it in that hot glue that I run around the edge. Even though it's kind of standing there, I just thought it needed a little bit more. And then I take my X-Acto knife and push it really good down into the glue, and that thing stuck. Now, if you had some of those blocks, the Jenga blocks or whatever, that probably would be a little bit better. But this was a little less noticeable too, I think. So I take one of those wooden hearts, and again, you could have used the cardboard, would have been just fine, and paint it. If you use the cardboard, you know, you could paint it too. I've seen cardboard painted, and it's really cute. But I take this pink, and I think if I'd have had the ballet slipper, it would have been better. This was a pink one. I think it's Martha Stewart from Target that I got years ago. I don't even know the name of it, but it was just too pink. It was like way too pink. So I dull it down with some white, and that's just that folk art white from Walmart that I've had a million years, and I kind of brush it on the edges of the distress the heart, and then I go ahead and distress the roof too, and I pretty much really kind of cover it up. But because it's that folk art, which is a more thin, watery paint, it still lets the pink shine through. So that, you know, where folk art isn't a great coverage without like 3 or 4 coats, it's good if you want to distress with it, because you don't get that full coverage look. You get kind of a watered down look without having to actually go mix the paint and whatever. And I have a ton of that folk art paint that I've had for years and years and years. And as long as you keep it shaking once a year, it's still pretty good. So I can tell you, girls, I've had paints for 20 plus years that I still have that are good. If you keep them shook up, you know, you don't have to worry about it. So I wrap some, oh, I'm making me a tassel. That's what I'm doing. So I wanted a tassel for my heart. So I make it out of the little twine that, you know, that same twine that comes from Dollar Tree. And I make me a little, and then I'll leave me a string because I got these little beads, that same bucket from Walmart. It was like $5 for, I don't know how many beads, but anyway, that had all different shapes and sizes in it. Oh, I also wrapped the heart with twine too to give it a little more look of that. Now then, I wrap it around the back, the tail of the tassel, and then hot glue it on. Now, girls, it turned out so cute. If y'all like these videos today, please like and subscribe to my channel and share. The more you share this, the better it helps my channel grow. I hope to see you soon.